Okay. Well, good afternoon, and let me welcome you to Conversations with Dr. Els. It's a beautiful day. It's great to be here, and we are looking forward for such a wonderful time this evening. We know that the enemy tries to distract. But we are going to see what God is doing. It is really nice on the outside, and we are glad to have all of you connected to Conversations with Dr. Els. Call your friends, let them know that Conversations with Dr. Els is on, and they can find us, they can uh, view us. We are on Caribbean Gospel Jam, we are on um, we are killing TV. We are really looking forward to have all of you guys on Conversations with Dr. L. So yes, let the folks know what is happening. And in the meantime, I want to tell you what is happening this year, December, God's willing. We should be heading to Israel again, and we're inviting you to join us in Israel. And let me just play this clip for you to show you what we're about to do and to invite you to our special Israel tour where you can join us. So, hey guys, take a listen here. Awesome. So that is our planned trip to Israel, December 6th to 15. And you have some time to join us on this Israel tour where you walk the streets that Jesus walked, the Via Dolorosa, the Temple Mount, the baptism site in the garden tomb, the Dead Sea. There's so much things that we can see. We've done this before, and we want you to join me. So you can contact me and let me know. Say, hey, Dr. Els, I am interested in being a part of this Israel tour. All right, so we encourage you to join us. But hey, today on Conversations with Dr. Els, as we started, we encourage you. We've been dealing. We started to deal with singleness, and I said to you last time, we're going to deal with singleness from different perspective. Okay, and we talk about the fact that some people are single because they choose to be single, And this comes in several categories. There are persons who are single because they've never married. There are persons who are single because they've been divorced. There are those who are single because of the loss of a spouse. And there are those who are single and decide to stay single. So even in the different categories, persons who are divorced and is currently single, well, some decide I am not going to get married again, and some decide, hey, I need to find me a man, I need to find me a woman. Those who've lost a spouse, the same. But we also said there are persons who are single, or let me put it the other way, there are persons who are legally married but single. All right. And so they may be married on paper, but the way they live, the way they interact with each other, they definitely living a single life. And so today I have a wonderful woman of God who is single, and we want to talk today about singleness after the death of a spouse. So help me welcome Penny, as we affectionately call her. Hi, Penny. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you.
All right, great. And Penny, just tell us a bit about yourself first, or where you're from, what you do, before we get in deep into this conversation.
Oh, a little about Penny or Zoe. Um, I was born in England. I, about the age of 3 or 4, I was then sent to Guyana to live with my grandparents. And at the age of 17, going to 18, we migrated to Barbados. Um, I love the Lord. We grew up in a Christian household, and that is the life that I basically knew, just living for the Lord.
Okay. So, born in England, grew up in Guyana,
And
living in
then,
Barbados.
yeah.
What a cultural mix that is. And should I ask, which is your favorite country?
Oh, wow. Could I be honest? It has to be Guyana. And I think simply because those impressionable season of my life was cultivated in Guyana. And so I wouldn't trade Guyana for anything. Actually, I was the last group of the family that came to Barbados. But at the same time, I want to say that God is was indeed in control of the transition of my life. So right now, this is a season, and here is where He have me, and truly here is where He has catapulted me in the things of God. So in the spiritual dynamics now, Barbados has it.
Okay, and I like what you said. You talk about season, and it's very important for persons to understand seasons,
Yes.
and I think this is key. Folks sometimes, they they're here and they believe they may be there forever. They're not open to any move, any change. But we know that God works in time and in season.
Yeah.
So let's jump into what we're talking about. You've been married before you lost your spouse for how long?
I was actually married for 17 years, but we knew each other for 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, um, knowing each other for 25 years, being married for 17 years,
Yeah.
and then you lost your spouse. How was that for you?
Wow. I would have met my spouse when and at that time, he wasn't that. But I would have met him around the age of 18, like shortly after I came to Barbados. And we courted, like I said, for 8 years because I was pretty young too. So I wasn't going to get married at all, not at that young age. But then we got married. So all of my life, basically, I can say from 18 to the point of his death, it was him around. And it was not easy. It was not easy losing someone that you basically had around your life most of the time. There was a season I had traveled to the United Kingdom, but we were still in contact. But then when death comes now, it finalizes that aspect of being able to call and to communicate. It was not easy.
Okay, I could imagine that, and I cannot say that I understand or I know exactly how you felt because we're different persons, but I've had that experience myself. But the question is, okay, you would have been together for 17 years. You've been married for 17 years. You're accustomed to uh, do things with your husband then in terms of you make decisions, you live together, and I would imagine, but let me not put words in your mouth. How was it? What are some of the highlights of that? Because that is going to help us to get into the aspect of the singleness.
Yeah. Even prior to me becoming single, I was reflecting on today and what we'll be sharing that God is such an awesome God. I remembered when my husband was hospitalized a few years prior, we know he was ill, but I didn't think that, this would have taken him out. But I remembered in the November he was hospitalized in January, but I remember in November in this dream I actually saw my son and myself. And when you wake out of a dream, you have different sensation and like God is saying certain things. And he was not in the picture, but I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand. It's after the fact, actually a year later, him passing away in October, then that dream became so vivid and real to me. Whereas God was preparing me unknowingly that soon and very soon it's going to just be you and your son or our son.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's that's something, at least, God works in such a way that
Yes.
he prepared you. And but let me ask, could you really be prepared for something like that, for death? Or could you be prepared for the loss of someone?
Mm. You are so right. Even though you are prepared, yet you're not prepared. I remembered the aspect when he was in the hospital and he was in and out for like 10 months. He was in and out of hospital. There are times he was hospitalized for like 3 weeks straight. I had to be going there constant because he had lost his sight. So I didn't want him to leave there not being able to feed himself. And I remember saying to the Lord, if you're going to take him away from me, I want you to use his mother that passed away as a representation of that. I want you to show me or let me hear. I believe I was saying here if he was around with me or show me if he was in the hospital. And true to form, he died on the Wednesday, but on the Sunday before, his mother, godchild, came to the hospital with the information. His mother passed away at the airport suddenly, so it made the newspaper. And was about 20 years later that godson brought the article to the hospital with the mother. In my spirit, it leaped, and I said, okay, God, something is about to happen, because I prayed and I believed God. So when he was about to read the article, I tell him, it's okay. That's all right. He wanted to read it to my husband, that was more or less, you know, out of it, because he wasn't responding to us at that time. And so I knew that God answered my prayer through that article that he brought. And so
Wow.
that was the Sunday. We went through the Monday, the Tuesday, and the Wednesday was it.
Oh, wow, wow.
Mhm.
God is just something else. Let me just take the time as usual. We are in a conversation and we have those of our viewers who are usually part of our conversations. I want to take this time and say hi to Charlene. Great having you locked on to Conversations with Dr. Els. Basil, great having you locked on also to Conversations with Dr. Els. Amelia, great having you guys share this conversation. Let others know what is happening, and it's really great having you all locked to Conversations with Dr. Els. Remember, we are also on Caribbean Gospel Jam and on KLN TV on your Roku channel or on the web. Okay, so we have Penny here, and we are talking about being single after the loss of a spouse, or in this case, a spouse, but generally after the loss of a partner, because we talk not only to Christians, though we deal with this from a faith base, but we know there are persons who watch us, they're not married, but they have a partner uh, living together for quite a while in some instances. So, um, Penny, after the loss of your husband, like I said earlier, there are things that you are accustomed to do, I believe, with him. You share things together. I guess you cook, you eat, you do all these things that married people do together, and you've done that for 17 years. Then to get to the point of being single again, is there a difference between you being single before you were married and being single after the loss of your spouse? How, could you share with us some of the things that you see as different in those circumstances?
Most definitely. Before I was married, um, yes, I was single, but then it was all about me getting on with my own journey and my own life and work and everything. But after being married now, there is someone else that has become a part of your life. We become one. So then it no longer, I could have just get up and do as I want and do as I like. I now had to be submitted to that individual that the Lord has brought into my life. So being single after was so hard, because everything I wanted to do, even setting the table after he passed, I remember he passed in the October, the Christmas, I had his table area where he was set. There was a plate and everything there, because I was, even to that point, I was still in levels of denial. So I still had my table set that, he's going to show up for meal.
Okay. And how about the social, the emotional aspect of those? So let's compare, if you want to put it, and contrast, your singlehood before marriage and singlehood after the loss of
Oh,
your spouse.
okay, yeah. Um, Actually, socially, I was more in church. My husband was not, so I was more the outgoing one. He would say, "Oh, you guys get on." It would be me and my son would go to church, and he would prefer not to go. Um, so that aspect of the marriage, it was not hard because I was used to going and just, being at church by myself. And really and truly, that was my social life. It was just activities with church, and if it was work, and then it was home. So that area of my life was not a loss because it was really not hyped in that area, if you get what I'm saying. Because I am here to keep it real. Yeah.
Okay. And after marriage, being single, how's that?
After the death and being single, like I said, it was not easy in terms of my son. He was still at school. You still have your mortgage, you still have your bills, you still, everything. Now it was you. You had to get on with life. Um, in terms of even in that season of the grieving, I can truly say I didn't have a great support system. And could I say now that I thank God for it in the midst of it, even though when someone is grieving because of what I have been through, I will not leave them alone. But in that season is where I really had to find the strength, courage, and knowing who God is, and really holding on to His word and allowing that word to strengthen me so that I can be that mother to my child.
Okay. And so there's a difference in that you after marriage, well, in marriage you have mortgage, you like we said, you do these things together, and then you lost your spouse and you have to deal with those responsibilities all by yourself.
Yes.
If What I found is that if it's a single person, they're accustomed to deal with those responsibilities when you marry and you have those responsibilities together, so you join, both of you working towards paying the mortgage, and then you lost your husband and you have to pick up the pieces, you have to deal with that all by yourself. It is different, and folks need to understand that, because it's one thing
I'm
to
unable to hear.
uh okay, give me a moment.
Yeah, it's okay now.
It's okay,
Thank
right?
you. Yes.
Yeah, there's one thing to have those responsibilities by yourself, and the other to have it with someone. else.
Yeah.
Now, at what point after the loss of your husband, you let me ask the question differently.
Hmm.
Um, have you ever felt that you wanted someone else after the death of your husband? You want to either get married again, you want to be with someone, because we're keeping it candid. Uh,
Yes.
and at what point? So at different aspects of your life. For example, you're married and you have a son. You are having sex. I want to believe that you are having good relationships with your husbands and stuff like that. And then after the loss, that feeling don't just disappear because you lost your spouse or your partner. There are going to be points in your life where you are going to miss that person. You're going to be by yourself. You have to, maybe you used to cuddle with him, now it's only the pillows and such like that. Could you tell us, was there any point that you are probably home and say, Lord, I can't deal with this anymore, or I need to be with somebody, I need companion, on and what point that would be?
Wow, that's an extensive question. So I'm going to give the answer as the Holy Spirit leads me. Um, Most definitely, I when my husband was sick, he was a diabetic, so he didn't have the strength for anything like that. So I was on pause while he was sick in that area. But my energy and focus was really to see him, to do the best I can for him, because my husband became a 24/7 person that needed care. So I had to minister to him in care. I had to do basically everything for him. So after he passed away, and I would say the marriage, I've had challenges up and down. So it was not always the brightest of a marriage. There were good times, there were bad times, and there were the indifferent times. But I thank God for all the times, because it has made me into who I am so that I can minister to women. Okay. But I remember when he passed away, I said, you see me, I just don't want another man. I can just serve God. And I remembered, there was an American preacher was coming to this nation, and I chose to serve, because all I wanted in the end was to serve in church, so that I don't have anyone now to stop me going and doing what I wanted to do, because I wanted to just serve. And so I volunteered to serve in this capacity in in that area. And I met someone came from another island to um, to join this conference. I wasn't thinking in that, honestly, in that time, I was just focused on, doing what I had to do in the secretariat. And I met this individual. And that's how things began in terms of meeting someone. And then I realized that all I was saying, it was just in the moment. But when I met him, everything I would want to say was awakened. So I became interested in this individual.
Okay. And there I've spoken to persons, lot of people around, and some men. There's a difference between men and women. A lot of times in this area, oftentimes you would hear a woman say, if my husband died, if my partner died, I don't want anybody. That's a general thing that you would hear from women. I've heard guys who said jokingly, but portraying that they're not planning to stay single. They would say, if my partner die, my wife die, I am crying on somebody's shoulder even there. And while that is jokingly, the idea is that there are persons who say, "Hey, I am going to get married again because I can't deal with this single life after experiencing marriage." And again, I do understand that for some people, the marriage may not have been the best, and because of that, you have challenges, and persons will say, "Hey, I am not going back into this anymore." Uh, but there are persons who I mean, I know of someone who their spouse died, and well, it's a male, so his wife died, and he got married like